Hey homies, welcome back to High Altitude Homesteading. I'm Rob, hope y'all are having a good morning, and thanks for joining us today. On this episode we're going to cover a few different things. So the first thing we're going to do is a midsummer garden update. So this is one of the main reasons why we started this channel, is to do a video log of the homestead. And so we can come back year after year and look at the video evidence and essentially look at where we were at in that part of the year, what we were doing, what we wanted to do differently, stuff like that. And that's what I want to go over in this episode. At the beginning is we'll do a garden update. I'll go over a few things that I want to do differently in the garden next year, things that I think would improve it, some changes. And we'll also do some damage assessment on the garden. So we had a very bad windstorm a couple days ago. It blew over some crops, and I haven't really assessed all the damage in the garden yet. So we're gonna go together and we'll assess that damage. So that's the first thing we'll do, is the garden update. And then what we're gonna go over is 5 ways that you can supplement your chickens on the cheap. So we'll talk about 5 different ways that we supplement our chicken feed and our chickens to keep our flock the healthiest that we can. All right, so we're gonna start in the herb garden here. Everything's doing pretty good. Peppermint is, of course, taking over. We had a little damage right here. If you can see it on our Roman chamomile plant, it got blown over, so we had to stake it up. But that's about it. Sage doing good. Peppermint, calendula, borage, dill. Alright, so here are the red velvet sunflowers. These are a little bit smaller than the mammoth ones, but they're doing pretty good. The last one hasn't come up yet, but we tied those up as the wind was going, so they survived luckily. And then here are our double Goldie sunflowers with the squash. That's a zucchini. So again, we came out and tied some of these guys off, doing pretty good. So here's the first change I would make with the garden. So if you see here, you got the bean plants. They're doing pretty good growing up the sunflowers. It's just, you'll see in a second on the mammoth sunflowers, they're a lot bigger. And one change I would do in the future is to just use mammoth sunflowers, because the peas kind of outpace these smaller sunflowers. Alright, so here's the garlic, and this is getting about done. We'll probably harvest this in the next week or two, so we'll definitely make a video about that. But again, we overwinter the garlic, so this has been growing since early spring. We planted it late fall, overwintered it, and then it pops up. Carrot's doing real good in the middle there, and we'll be harvesting this in a couple weeks. Alright, so we'll come over here in the next box. Potatoes, doing pretty well. We got our onions, also doing well. Another change I would probably make next year is to maybe plant the onions a little farther away from the potatoes. They seem to be doing all right, but they're just getting a little crowded in here. So here's the mammoth sunflowers, and this is what I was saying. These guys get really big. So you can see the peas kind of climbing up on there. So they're doing real good, because these peas are not outpacing these sunflowers. So the only change I would make with this is, in the future, I'd probably, instead of planting the peas in a row like this, I would plant them kind of in just circles, or maybe like 4 pea plants around one sunflower. Because some of these in the middle here that are between the sunflowers are just not really able to climb up as good. So that's just another little change I would make next year. Alright, so here's the more potatoes and the corn. So this box is doing very well. Also can't forget about Also can't forget about the German chamomile over here. So that one's a little bit more of a ground covering, doesn't get as high, so that one didn't have any damage. The corn made it out okay. Potatoes are pretty good in the wind, so that luckily that didn't do anything. Alright, and then we have our last box here, which is not doing the best. So I have some kale there in the back, some spinach on the left there, the beans in the middle, and unfortunately with the wind, some of the bean plants actually got blown out of the ground, so we're missing some, so I'm going to replant a few beans this morning. The beans on the right side, for whatever reason, are just taking a very long time doing anything. It just seems like the heat this year is really affecting the crops in this box. So the beans, the kale, the spinach, they're just all struggling, having a little trouble. And the wind didn't help the other day. Carrots are doing good in the front though. Alright, so our Guardian Mullins for the most part survived. We lost one big one on the corner, but for the most part they all survived, so lucky there. Alright, so here are our side food plots, which are also not doing the best. I would hope they were doing a little bit better, but one change I would make with this is I think next year what we'll do is plant the peas in the back row so they can easily get to the fence, and maybe just skip trying to plant anything else in this box. I don't know. The last 2 years, nothing but peas and sunflowers have done really good in this box, and this year, unfortunately, the sunflowers doesn't even seem to be doing that well. You can see the corn there on the left. They're just not growing that fast or growing well at all. So I think what I'll do next year is kind of till this plot up and try to mend it a little bit better with compost or manure, all of it, and just see if I can get it a little more organic, a little more richer, because it just seems like stuff does not do as good in these boxes. So that's another change I would make next year. Alright, so here are our strawberry plants, and they're doing fairly well. Again, I just feel like in these food plots, you can see the lettuce in the front too. Stuff is just not popping as much as in the boxes or anything like that. So what I think I need to do is just till up, and this will be hard because I have the strawberries, but what I'll do is I'll probably till around them, amend the soil, and amend right close to them, and just try to make it, you know, a little richer for next year and see if stuff grows a little bit better. I might have overestimated the soil properties, or I might have overestimated what I could just grow straight in the ground here. So we'll make some changes next year. Okay, and the pollinator area real quick is popping. Got sunflowers, bachelor's button, bee plant, California poppy, sweet alyssum, some clover over there. So this is doing well. So a quick round on the bushes, because they are doing about as good as expected. This is the blueberry bush, and she is still trying. I cut the blueberries off, and it seems to be doing a lot better, just getting some more foliage and just growing bigger, because that's what it needs to do before it tries to produce any fruit. So that's still going. We have our massive raspberry plant bush that we are getting raspberries off every day. So that thing is doing amazing. And our Black Beauty elderberry bush. So I'll show you guys in a sec. We actually had 2 new additions over that we put in the square. We put a silver lace elderberry bush in and another raspberry bush. But the reason we put the silver laced elderberry bush in is because the Black Beauty, this one, is actually not self-pollinating, and we didn't know that when we put it in, so we had to buy a different species of elderberry to pollinate this one. So we got that, and now it's actually getting elderberries, so that's dope. So we have our cherry tree, it's going strong. Produced a few more cherries, but again, this is just a second year tree, so it's not going to produce a ton of fruit yet. They usually don't start doing that to about year 3 or 4. So, but it survived the windstorm. It's doing great. All right, now we'll move on to the side area. We have our oregano bush here, going strong, and now our potatoes, which could be doing better. So these are the potatoes that I planted in these circle pots, these fabric pot, and a couple of them are not doing as well as I would like. So these 3 in the front, you can see, are a little bit yellow. The leaves are a little bit curled. I think they're not getting enough water, so I've been trying to supplement them, but they're trying. All right, so here's the grape plant that we planted last week, and you guys can find that video on our playlist, on the gardening playlist. We did that last week, so if you want to see how to plant a grape, check out that video. But it's doing great. And here are the food plots. Again, these are new this year, so we have our 2 food plots with potatoes, and they're doing all right. Here is the last potato pot, and this one is doing very good. And I think because it's in the shade a little bit from the greenhouse compared to these other ones, these potatoes seem to be liking that a lot more. So, and then here's our sunflower experiment, which is also doing quite well. But we planted that in one of those pots, and it is doing very well. And I haven't really cataloged this yet, but this is our sunflower patch, and it actually extends along this end of the boxes right here. But these are black oil sunflowers, and I'm going to show you guys in a second. This is one of the ways that we cheaply supplement our chickens. We also planted a bunch right here on the edge of the greenhouse because it gets a lot of water. So, and again, these are black oil sunflowers. I'll show you guys those seeds in a second and what we use them for on the chickens. All right, guys, that's it here on the homestead for the midsummer update. Things are going fairly well, I would say, with the weather we've had and everything going on. Stuff is going pretty good. And next we'll check out the greenhouse, and then we'll check in on the chickens and give you guys those 5 ways to supplement your chicken flock. And we're gonna we'll start with Leroy here, and he's doing a lot better, coming out of his tough winter where he got exposed to some of the elements there for a little bit. So he's recovering nicely. No lemons this year, but we're just gonna let him recover. We got the chicken in the greenhouse cleaning up the weeds. All right, so let's move along here, and we got our chives, our kale. This is our Mountain Princess tomato plant, which is doing quite well. She's got a couple tomatoes on her already coming in. We got one of our jalapeno plants, some more kale. That's a cherry tomato. We started a little later, so she's coming along. That's our cucumber, which is coming along. Wish it was growing a little bit better, but that's okay. Here are some late jalapeno peppers. Those guys are coming along, but we planted those a little late. And our broccoli, which is getting decimated by caterpillars. Here is our other cucumbers, which are going strong. And here are our other jalapenos, which are also going strong. We got a few jalapenos on there that we need to pluck. But another cherry tomato, another kale. We got some experimental carrots here. See how they grow in these little pots. Our basil, our rosemary, thyme, and French lavender. So, and our chickens getting in here. They always take the chance to get in here if they can. Alright, and that's the greenhouse. Covering nicely from the late winter tragedy. Alright, and we have our peach tree here. Survived the windstorm fine. And we got our peaches coming in. Looking beautiful. Alright, last but not least, the plum tree, which, like the blueberry, we've cut off any fruit or flowers because this one just needs to get bigger. So we've just been trying to trim it, trying to fill it out, and wait for any type of fruit till next year. That is our midsummer update for the homestead. It is July 13th, so we're looking at mid-July here, and stuff is starting to pop. And we made it out of the windstorm pretty much unscathed, so that's good too. Alright, so we're going to get back to these chickens, check on them, and I'm going to give you guys the 5 things that we supplement our chickens' diets with every day to try to keep our flock healthy. Alright, we're here in the back, and I want to show you guys the 5 things that we do to supplement our chickens' diets to help them stay healthy. So because you made it so far in this video with me already, I'm actually going to start at number 1 instead of number 5 and count down that way. Alright, so the number 1 thing that we supplement our chickens' diets with is black oil sunflower seeds. So black oil sunflower seeds are a lot higher in good fatty oils, which is important for chickens at high altitudes or if you live somewhere cold, because what the oils will do in the winter for the chickens is they will actually convert those oils into energy, which will provide warmth for them. So it's really important to get them the nutrients they need in the winter so that they can provide the warmth that they need to survive the winter. Another reason we choose black oil sunflower seeds is because of the protein content in them. So they actually have a higher protein content than other sunflower seeds, about 26% protein content. So that helps the chickens out a lot with their protein. Another reason is black oil sunflower seeds are really cheap. So I think this is a 65 or 70 pound bag that I got online, and I think I got it for maybe 50, 60 bucks, something like that. And this is what I use. I just scoop out about this much every day, and I just throw them to them. I'll show you guys in a sec. I just throw them to them as a treat, and they eat them up. They love them. So super cheap, widely available. You can get them online. You can get them at a lot of nurseries or pet food stores because they're actually used for bird feed, like wild bird feed a lot. So you can find them there also. Just make sure they're organic and they come from a good source and everything like that. Another reason why we feed black oil sunflower seeds is they contain a lot of methionine. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but it's a amino acid that is important to chickens for them to develop properly and to produce eggs at an optimum level. And the last reason is they contain a lot of extra vitamins and minerals when compared to regular sunflower seeds, especially vitamin E, which again is very important for chickens in their development and egg production. Alright, so black oil sunflower seeds is the number 1 thing that I would recommend to anybody trying to cheaply supplement your chicken flock and keep them healthy. Okay, so the second thing that I would recommend to people when you're trying to cheaply supplement your chicken feed is a calcium supplement. So actually I have 2 choices here. We use both. We use oyster shell, which we buy from the store. This is pretty cheap. It's probably like $9 for this bag, and this lasts us a long time because you don't really need to give a lot of this stuff. It gives you the measurements on the back, but you just want to give them a little bit. Either you can add it to their food, or you can just give it to them in a bowl separately. We just give it to them in their food. We mix it in their food. The other thing you can use for a calcium supplement is eggshells. So if you just keep the chicken's eggshells, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to bake these to get off any bacteria or anything like that, and then you're going to to grind them up. And you're going to want to grind them up pretty good because you want the chickens to not know that these are eggshells essentially, because what that can do is it can promote chickens basically eating their own eggs or something like that. So you don't need to bake these for long. Really, if you just turn on your oven and let it heat up to about 300, 350 and then turn it off and then throw these in on a cookie sheet or something like that, let them bake for maybe 10 or 15 minutes till the stove gets cool. So if you just wait for the stove to get cool and then you just take them out, they'll be a little brown and they'll be a little baked. And then you just want to use a blender or something like that to blend these up into a nice fine powder. And then you'd use it the same way that you would use oyster shells. You would just add it to their food, or you can give it to them in a bowl as a separate, feed totally, if you want to do that too. So that's the second thing that I would recommend people if they're trying to supplement their chicken flock on the cheap. You need to do a calcium supplement. So you can either do oyster shells, which is pretty cheap for the chickens, or even cheaper if you just keep their eggshells, bake them, grind them up, and then give them back to them. That will give them the necessary calcium that they need in their diets. All right, so the third thing that I would recommend to everybody who is trying to supplement their chicken flock on the cheap are weeds. So basically just weeds in general. We have a couple different weeds that chickens enjoy, from purslane to pigweed to lamb's quarters, to one called curly dock, wild lettuce. Basically they will eat a lot of different weeds and they do like them. So there's a couple things that chickens don't enjoy, at least in Colorado specifically, like thistles and a weed called cochina, which is basically like a succulent weed kind of. They don't really care for bindweed, vines and stuff like that. You can try different weeds. If you just pull them out of your garden, try to feed them to your chickens will eat what they like and eat what they don't like. And I haven't found anything that harms the chickens or anything like that yet. Again, third thing that I'd recommend to anyone trying to cheaply supplement their chicken flock is weeds. If you have weeds in your yard, allow the chickens to get out there and eat what they want to eat, or you can just pick the weeds. That's what we kind of do here. I just pick them and I throw them over the fence, and the chickens get at them and eat what they want. So I'm here in the greenhouse to show you guys the fourth thing that I would recommend to anybody trying to supplement their chicken flock on the cheap. And what that is kale, or really any veggie that you can grow in excess. So generally kale is a no-fail, what they would call a no-fail veggie, something that is easy to grow. Most people have no trouble growing it, stuff like that. I would beg to differ. I seem to be having trouble growing it this year, at least outside. Here in the greenhouse it seems to be doing a little bit better, but out in the boxes the kale is not doing as good as it usually does. Be that as it may, I would still say that kale is one of the best things you can grow to supplement your chickens, and there's a couple reasons for that. The main reason is that kale is actually really high in calcium. So calcium is really important for your chickens, like we talked about with the oyster shells and the egg shells. Getting your chickens enough calcium is one of the most important things you can do for their egg production. So kale helps with that. It's high in calcium, it's high in, at least comparable to other veggies, it's high in calcium. Obviously compared to other things, it's not. But relatively speaking, it's high in calcium, it's high in other vitamins and nutrients that chickens need. And again, it's a veggie that's generally easy to grow for most people, and that most people can grow in excess. So we grow a lot of excess lettuce just everywhere. We grow a lot of excess herbs like this basil and stuff like that. Any veggie or herb or anything like that is generally going to be good for your chicken, and it's going to be a good cheap way that you can supplement them if you can grow it cheaply. So some other examples of some good veggies that you can grow in excess that chickens like would be stuff like carrots. So carrots, chickens really dig the carrot tops. So if you grow carrots and you eat the bottoms, you can feed the tops to your chickens. That's just another way of supplementing them on the cheap. So if you're growing a bunch of broccoli and you want to give them the broccoli greens, or if you're growing spinach or anything that's leafy and grows well can be used to cheaply supplement your chickens, and they're gonna like it a lot. Okay, so we're here in the kitchen to show you guys the fifth and final way that we supplement our chicken flock to try to keep them healthy. And that is using broccoli sprouts. So basically you could do this with any microgreen. It doesn't have to be broccoli sprouts. You don't have to do it in the jar like we do it. You can grow microgreens on a tray, anything. It's just microgreens are a good way to cheaply supplement your chicken flock because they hardly take any water or energy to grow. They grow super fast, and at least broccoli seeds, I know specifically for like this thing, is very cheap for this bag, and this thing lasts us a long time. So here, let me show you what we do. So basically, we start off with just a mason jar like this, and these guys are a few days along, so it's not going to look like this. Basically, you're going to take your broccoli seeds, you're going to measure out 1/4 to 1/3 cup of broccoli seeds and dump them in the jar. You're going to take the jar, you're going to fill it up with some water, and you're going to let the seeds soak overnight, or just over the day. It doesn't have to be overnight, but just let them soak for about 12 hours, and then you're going to rinse them out. Then what you're going to want to find is, well, first what you're going to want to buy are these tops. So essentially these tops are plastic tops that fit on a wide mouth mason jar, and what they do is they're different sizes of holes. So you can see like these two are, this one's bigger, this one's the medium one, and this one's actually the smallest one. So what you do is you start with the smallest one and you put it on top, and basically what you're going to do is every day after you soak them, so you soak them for 12 hours and then you rinse all the water out. So you're going to fill them up, you're going to soak them, kind of shake them to clean them, and then you're just going to shake all the water out. Basically, you're going to shake all your water out. You can start with the smallest top, shake all the water out, and you're going to want to get all the water you can out, because then basically just get them kind of back like this. So like I said, these are a couple days older. So these are probably like 2 or 3 days old, and you can see they're starting to sprout. Although they're just yellow, they're not green yet, they're starting to sprout. So because they're starting to sprout, I'm going to switch out for this little bigger top, because now that they're sprouted, they're not going to fall through the top, and this makes it a little bit easier to shake out the water and stuff like that. So about day 2 or 3, you can switch to the bigger top, and then what you're going to want to do is find some type of container that allows this. If you're doing it in the mason jar, this is how we do it. If you're doing it on a tray, just disregard this. You don't have to do this process. You can grow them on the tray, water them how you like, and however big you want to get them till you feed your chickens, you can do that. But if you're doing it in the jar, which I think is a lot easier, this is how we do it. You want to make sure all your water's you're out. This is still going to be wet, of course, but you just want to make sure you get all the excess water out, or most of it that you can. And then what you're going to want to do is find a container that allows your mason jar to sit at an angle. So this container isn't perfect, but there. So you want it to kind of sit at an angle, and so that way over the day, see, like I said, this one's not perfect. It was a little bit wider. It could sit kind of more at an angle, but you want it to sit at an angle, and that way the water drains throughout the day, and that will give you even less of a chance of having any problems with E. coli or anything like that. And then, just every day when you rinse this out, dump your water out, and then basically I just put it right here so it can get a little light from this window. It doesn't need a ton of light or anything like that. You can set it almost anywhere. And generally, your seeds will turn to microgreens within 4 to 5 days. Like I said, this is about day 2 or 3. I'm going to let this go another day, let them sprout a little bit more. And then what I'll do is I'll actually take like a cookie sheet with a paper towel on it, and I'll just put the seeds on the paper towel, spread them out so they get all dry. And another thing that allows them to do is it allows all of them to get sun, and they kind of green up over a day. That is the 5th thing that I would recommend to anybody who's trying to cheaply supplement their chicken flock, is consider microgreens. They're easy, they take almost no resources to grow, and they're super nutritious for your chickens. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed the garden update video today, and I hope you found some useful information in the 5 ways that you can cheaply supplement your chicken flock. That's all we have for today. I want to thank you again for joining us here on High Altitude Homesteading. Please, if you are enjoying these videos and you haven't subscribed, please click the subscribe button below. And if you guys have any questions or comments or anything like that, as always, please leave those below and I'll try to get back to you on that. Again, thanks for joining us here on High Altitude Homesteading. I'm Rob. Catch you on the flip side.